25. Call to order the Financial, Legal, Administrative, and Real Estate Committee meeting. Can I get a motion? You want to scroll through the agenda? Or you want me to have it in front of me?
Let me pull it up just a second.
I see it. You have a shared screen. It's on
I
it.
can't see it. Hold on a second. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. Perfect. Can I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Oh, can't do that.
Yeah, I think you can do. I have to second these, right? Because I'm the only other board member. Is that correct?
Well, I'm here now, so I'll second.
Betty's here.
Oh, look
Now-
who showed up.
I decided to drop in and surprise you guys.
Well, we're back in business. We're back in
Okay.
business.
Good thing I've prepared for the proper order of operations today. Moving on to the meeting minutes, can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I'll now open up for public comment. At this time, comments from the audience may be made on items not listed on the agenda that are of public interest and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. The committee has a policy of limiting speakers to not more than 3 minutes. The committee cannot take action on items not listed on the agenda. Public input may be offered on an agenda item when it comes up for discussion. Continue scrolling. Comes up for discussion and or action. Are there any public comments at this time?
There are no public comments.
Okay, seeing no comments, I'll move on to the next section. Moving over to Chris, the Chief Executive Officer's report.
I do not have any items specifically under that agenda items at this point. Thanks.
Seeing no items here, I'll move on to section F, the Chief Administrative Officer's report. Eric?
Yes, I'm going to start here by noting on page 9 of the packet, CEO or CAO report. We're still 100% occupied with our annual rents and CAM revenue estimated at $1,549,008. We do have one renewal lease on today's agenda for Suite 3E 101-102, which I will get to later on in the agenda.
Are there any public comments on the Chief Administrative Officer's report?
No public comments.
Okay, seeing none, are there any board comments?
Point of information, are there any public attendees, Andrea?
There are, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. All right, seeing no comments, we'll move on to section G, the financial reports. Eric?
Yeah, thank you. I will start on page 12. So just to highlight our performance, overall, we're above budget for our income, under budget in our expenses. So on this particular page, we will highlight those specific sections which have notable budget variances. Only one that I was going to point at, the CEO discretionary fund is showing over budget, but that's primarily due to only having completed 7 of the 12 months out of the fiscal year, as well as sponsorships, which have been brought to the board over the last couple of meetings. There will be an item on the agenda later today, which will address this item in relation to sponsorships.
Just for clarification, Eric, what page? You said page 12, page 12 of 24, or page, what page are you referring to?
12 of the whole packet, so 12 of 108 is what I have for the district.
Because of the new configuration, I guess the first time we're using this, I think we just need to get all clear on what pages we're doing, because it's the first paperclip was 24 pages, so that's page 12 of 24 then?
So are you referring to the financial reports, Letty?
Yeah,
So 12 of 24, yes.
okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, my reference is all going off of the full packet, so my page numbers are based on that, which on my version is shown on the bottom left of 108.
Oh, okay.
So that's the full packet,
So
so.
if I click on the big one, on the top one, it'll have all of them instead of the breaking down. Okay, I get it. Thank you.
Sure, and I'll look at that going forward then to be able to reference it if it's preferred to be individual files rather than the entire packet. All right, So what I'll do, I just have a couple notes to point out through this packet and then can answer any questions. But I wanted to highlight a few things here. So on page 13 of the packet, which is our summary of profit and loss, the item I wanted to note here.
The same thing I'm looking at. Is it possible for you to pull up the actual packet that was published from the agenda?
I have all my notes on the full packet, so
Because page 13 for us is the deposit and details. So if you went to the agenda and you went to the financial report.
okay, this, sorry, yeah, just everything was in sequence. Okay, so I guess page 3, we can go to the profit and loss summary.
Maybe I'm looking at something else. Okay. I don't know.
It seems to go fine through the one you emailed, Andrea. 13 of 108 is the profit and loss budget versus actual for me. Right there.
I guess I'm looking at something different, so.
Yeah, that's-
I think you're looking at what I was looking at originally, but if you go to the top one and it has all 108 pages, I think that makes more sense.
That's what I've been using.
Thank you, that way all my notes were tying back here,
Thanks, Eric.
for sure. So on page,
Okay, here we go.
that's 196.
Oh, that's, I'm sorry, that's the wrong. Well, here's the P and L at any rate.
Okay, so on P and L, this particular one, this is just the breakdown of what categories are listed on that prior page for the variance analysis. I just want to highlight a couple things here as we go through, just as a revisit to them. On the next page, on page 14, what I wanted to highlight was on one of the first lines there. Oh, I'm sorry, page 4 for you, Andrea.
Sorry, I have multiple things going.
No worries.
There you go.
So I just wanted to highlight here on the very first line, 4010 property tax revenues. This is showing at the end of January that we were 430,000 under budget. That just has to do with timing. As an example, we just received a $1.3 million tax receipt, which was received a couple days into February. So that puts us more in line about 900,000 year to date. So I wanted to note that since previously I had noted that we we're up on revenue. So it's all about timing, and we estimate our budgets on when we think we'll receive it, but that can vary a little bit month to month. So we are up year to date in the property tax receipts there. As far as my notes for the remainder of the financials, I didn't have a whole lot specifically to point out. Everything is in the anticipated range. So I'm open to answer any questions on the financials itself, but I don't have anything else to note until the last couple pages of this report for the RPP and grants.
Well, I'll go ahead and open up any of these financials to public comment. If there is none, then I'll look for the board members here. If there's any comment from you about the financials presented. Okay, seeing
The only one
none.
that I had a question
come on.
about was on page 28, the check register, the peak grant making. Can you remind me what that is?
Peak grant making is a membership to the Peak grant making. I'm drawing a blank on the.
It's all grant makers and funders are, we're members of that. They have all kinds of webinars and seminars and it's like Grant Makers in Health and Southern California Grant Makers. It's just another grant making organization for funders.
Okay, is that an annual fee or is that? monthly?
Annual fee, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Membership. Thank you, Don.
I have a question. I saw, and I'm sure there's multiple sponsorships for the same event based on a different organization. I'm trying to identify it now on the check register, but
Was that possibly related to the Don't Mind Me? What we have.
there was the thing with the something cafe. I'll find it. I have it in my notes here. I'll find it, but there's but let's not hold up the meeting on that basis.
Yeah.
It could be in the discretionary report of the, here it is, wine and all All That Jazz Cafe Noir. There's another one I see is for the Jocelyn Center, but I noticed there's a whole bunch of different payees to the same event.
Mm. What-
Everybody with me on this?
What page is that on, Arthur?
Well, I'm looking at page 29. You'll
Okay.
see, 63, account 6325 is one example of it, but it appears in a number of different places for different organizations. $5,000 grant for Wine and All That Jazz Cafe Noir.
See, I think one was a donation and one was a sponsorship. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Chris and Eric.
Yeah, so the original 10,000 was the sponsorship. And then there was agreed with some board members to do an additional 5,000 during the actual auctioning, not auction, but raising of the paddle, so to speak. So we did another 5,000 to help support their effort.
Okay, thank you. I just saw it recurring, thought I needed just notice. That's all. Thank you.
Very, very good point of clarification. Thank you.
And I think that also included a match that they were trying to get to, so that was another
Correct.
a consideration for that.
Seeing no more comments, we can move on. Eric?
I was just gonna note on page 32, which is our overview of the RPP. Haven't had a lot of movement from December to January, but we have received a couple requests. So we anticipate being able to process those in February. So we'll have a couple of those names drop off the list and get paid out and whatnot. And then the last.
Can you
Right, so-
clarify that point? Can you clarify that? So we're gonna have some people that are no longer going to be on the RPP. They're gonna take their payout and then that will no longer be a liability. Was I understanding that correctly?
Correct, yeah, the number will drop. We have at least 2 applications in, or submissions currently that we anticipate. We're still trying to get a few bits of information on those to move forward, but it looks like 2 of those should be processed. We almost always have a couple applications out, but we don't always get those returned in a timely manner for whatever the reason may be, but these 2 were specifically looking like they'll be able to be processed, so. We appreciate getting that reduced down. And then
Yeah, I wanna ask you
the
something.
last item was just on the grant schedule, just pointing out that we still had 4.3 million remaining, in funds remaining for the fiscal year 24-25 at this point. And that is all I have on the financials.
Does the grant action assume all of the items 1 through 11 is the request for support for that? All the items?
Items 1 through 11.
Yeah, you're not gonna ask for 11 motions to approve the financial.
It'll be one motion for all the financial.
That's what I meant.
We can do that, Arthur. We can go page by page.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know, my brain.
I'm happy to practice my skills of doing this. So,
No, that's fine. My brain couldn't handle it anyway. Okay, I move such approval.
I'll
all right,
second.
let me make sure I open up for public comment again. Is there any public comment on the finals of the financial reports?
There are no public comments.
Thank you. Any final board comments? Nope. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Keep scrolling down for me.
Okay, let's go down here. Oh, no, what you guys are looking at?
So-
I have the full PDF up, Andrea.
This is what was published though online. I just don't understand. This is where I got it from the website.
We were working off what you emailed us.
The PDF that was in the email.
Great. So
Um,
onto section H, other matters. Item 1. 2025 Healthy Desert, Healthy You, Healthy Summit. Are there any comments on this item?
So just, I don't know if you want to explain, Eric, this is the staff report and then which follows is the summit activities, the action items indicate action. So I don't know if someone wants to explain, you know, Chris, what's going on here, and then we have the,
Okay, so what we have here are several documents that are related to the Environmental Health Summit for this year. And so we've included a draft agenda for the event, which the first day, September 11th, will have several topics and breakout sessions. And then the second day is anticipated to be a couple of different tours that are being planned and scheduled. One at the water reclamation plant and composting facility. The other is the Sunline hydrogen plant and solar Renova or wind farms. So that's the agenda for the 2-day event. We've also included a budget. It's kind of a draft budget. There's still some items that will be worked out as we go. We've got a sponsorship deck in there as well. And the budget I did want to point out, as I was looking a little bit more through that, I think I would like to increase the commitment from the district from 75,000 to 100,000. If we look back at last year, the district did end up having to do roughly around 100,000. And so I'd like to up that this year so that we can accommodate that as well. And then I've also increased the contingency that's lower on that budget from 10,000 to 20,000, just in case we have some overage on the expense, which would still allow us if we go to the very bottom of the budget. Andrea?
Who is the faculty for this meeting?
Who's the what?
The faculty.
Faculty.
The staff.
he's the speakers, oh, staff, is that what he's referring to?
Yeah.
Who's the staff
Professor
that's
Christensen.
present at this meeting, you mean?
Yeah, who's gonna lead this from a professional perspective?
Oh, well, we have Hawker Production, who is the production company that we worked with last year. We're also working with them again this year. There's a contract agreement in the packet for consideration that would be, the fee is 45,000. Staff is working with Jeff Hawker again this year to produce the event. And so we have several committee meetings that we're engaged with in developing this summit. Does
Okay,
that answer your question?
well, I may have asked the wrong, but there's no academic, there's no presentations involved in this that requires professional presenters.
Well, we will have some guest speakers.
Yeah, that's close enough. Guest speakers is close enough.
Yeah, so if we were to look at the agenda here, we've got a keynote speaker on the first day at 11:40 a.m. Andrea Vidoir. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But will be a keynote speaker. And then, I don't know.
What page is that on? Because that's the piece missing.
It's on the screen if you want to look at the screen right now, or
Just tell me the page. I have the whole the whole packet.
Page
35.
35.
Thank you. Thank you.
page
Okay.
35.
The Western.
In the PDF.
Hold on a second, are there?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right, I forgot.
oh, he's not looking at the
That's right.
revised one.
Yeah,
I forgot you revised it.
Thank you,
Eric.
Hold on, let me pull it up. So it's the, what are we looking at again? He's looking for, I'm sorry.
The agenda.
what,
Oh, the
it's page
Yeah, it's-
35 of 108.
Correct.
Sure.
35, thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
And
No, where this one go smaller.
Mr. Chair, I do have some questions when you're ready to take them.
Chris, or any other comments, Chris, you'd like to make on this before I open it up for public comment and then board comment?
Yeah, essentially just the overview here is that we're looking at, you know, an approval of the agenda that we're putting together as a draft, and then also the draft budget, as well as the contract agreement with Hawker Productions, and also the Weston Inn agreement that we need to be able to tie up the facility for that event.
Great. Are there any public comments on this before I open it to the board? Okay, seeing none, I'll open it up to the board. Go ahead, Letty.
Okay, first question is, I like the fact that we are paying a fee, an amount to some of the participants, like our nonprofits, for example, Alianza. I think it's important to pay them for their time. Besides the big name speakers. I have a question about last year. We were able to reduce the number based on the reservations. Are we able to do that this year as well, so that we're not paying for meals that are not going to be eaten? Can we do that as well? I know that brought our losses down at the end last year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll monitor that
Okay.
as the time passes, as we get registrations in place, et cetera. So it'll be, the actual expense will tie pretty closely to the actual attendees.
I didn't see that anywhere in there, so just to make sure that I know it said 300 to 500, and so just to make sure that there is a date, that there is a call-in. I think usually there's like a call-in before the Wednesday before the event or whatever, but if you could just make sure that is stated somewhere. My next question is, let's see. Are you, last year, Jeff Hawker mentioned that one of his, that he was not responsible for seeking sponsors, that he was, everything that was in the agreement did not include that. So is there somebody that is actually designated with that responsibility?
We will have a committee that will be assigned different sponsors to reach out to, and we will be hitting that hard very shortly.
Okay, very good. And my last question is, well, actually two more questions. One is transportation for day 2. That was identified as something that will be part of the conference, and what kind of transportation are we talking about? Is it buses or what? Because I know Sunline in the past has provided free buses for tours, so I don't know if that's something that you've considered asking them to provide that for free.
Yeah, I think, well, I know buses are being arranged with that. Alejandro, do you have a little more information there,
Yeah,
please?
Sunline Transit Agency, since they're gonna be one of the sites that we would like to visit, we're gonna engage them to see if that could be a possibility. If not, we will look at alternate transportation, like Cardiff and the local transportation. And also, it all depends also on the number of registers, people that register for the for the tour. So we'll be looking at Sunline primarily to see if they could in kind provide us with the 2 buses that are gonna be going to the 2 different sites. So that is something that we're definitely looking into, Director.
I'm glad to hear that, because I believe that they do have some funding for these kinds of events. So I would rather get it for free if it's possible than having to pay for it. My last question is, I saw the list of speakers. I was a little bit surprised that our board chair was not listed as a speaker. If she's interested in doing it as a representation of the board, I think that that should be considered. Last year we had that, so.
Yeah, and we'll include that at the beginning as well,
Okay.
with the CEO part of it, so.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to have the board president be a speaker. So that was it. Thank you.
Any comments from other board members?
Well done.
Agreed. I had one comment on just the overall budget. You know, what's the total number of attendees that we expect? I saw in there they were estimating maybe 400 to 500 on Thursday and 100 on Friday, if I read the estimates right. Is that correct? I wasn't here last year, so just trying to get an idea of what that.
Yeah, and last year we had, I think, a little over 340, something like that.
So what's the cost per attendee roughly that we're gonna spend? Do we have a rough estimate of last year?
Well, the total cost we had last year was about 180 grand, I think.
And about 300 attendees or so? So I'm just thinking about, I like the idea of starting up an initiative like this. I'm just trying to see the cost effectiveness of it. Of like, how much we spend per person to come and how that lines up with other conferences around. So effectively we spend about $600 per person to come, which is pretty hefty. So I think, I'd like to see us drive that cost down by getting more people to attend, and whether that means, this year marketing it a little bit differently, hitting certain channels. I'd like to see us drive that cost down, because $600 per person is a lot in terms of attendance. And I'm hoping as we drive up the amount of attendance that number goes down. But I think it's a really good KPI metric that financially we just have to make sure that we're spending the money here wisely, and that we're going to get a return of value, that we couldn't find another use of $600 per person that would impact them more than coming to the conference. So just a comment, but just something I think I'd like to keep in the forefront of us as we continue to go to these conferences.
Director Logston, are you looking at it just as a pure cost per attendee, or because also part of this is supplemented by sponsorships?
For sure. No, for sure. No, I'm not talking, not just
us.
us, just total money raised and spent. That's it. I was just curious, trying to find, how do we say that this has been a successful event? One is like, what changes have come out of it? What walk away, what surveyed, data do we get back from them saying, hey, I learned something from this? And the third thing is, what's the cost effectiveness of how we spend the dollar per person? It's the same question that I think we asked about the mobile clinics. What is the cost per visit, right? And when you hear that it's anywhere between $43 and $60 cost per mobile visit, that is a really good use of our resources. So I'm just saying financially, keeping the finances in the top of mind about how we spend them to go in outreach, only as a metric to follow, not to say whether or not it was necessarily successful, just as one of the metrics to kind of feed back into us as we continue doing this. So only a comment.
The one thing I'd like to see is a much more sophisticated and expansive sponsorship program. And the best analogy that I can think of, anybody who watches any sporting event today is now in the United States, let alone in Europe, is starting to see sponsorship on the uniforms of individuals, of players. Even so, in baseball, somebody's got the sponsorship for helmets, that every helmet of a batter has the name of a company that is sponsoring that. I think our sponsorship base is way too short, way too narrow in scope. For example, I don't see any automobile sponsors, and we have a humongous sized automobile revenue stream in the valley. A huge number of sponsors. Now, and I'm not suggesting that Kia be an official sponsor per se, but I'd like to see the scope of sponsors expanded to include some of the major benefactors of the revenue streams produced by our city. Just a thought.
It's a good, very, very good comment, Arthur. I would second that thought about, going out and seeing how we can get more organizations involved to further support, whatever our conference is for that year. I guess back to my other comment, is the organization that is producing this for us, will they be doing event survey feedback from all the attendees so we get an idea of what was successful, what was not?
Yeah, actually, we did that last year. We had a survey afterwards, and we will do that again this year. So
good. It would be nice to have a debrief after the summit's done. I know we've got months away, but it'd be nice to see that. So thank you.
Absolutely, we will.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I have one more question, sorry. One thing that you reminded me in earlier when you were asking about the cost. Last year, we offered this at zero cost, and I've not seen anything anywhere else. I'm guessing that that's the same case that and one of the concerns that I had last year is having people sign up and then not show up. And is there any thought process about there being a low fee to, of course, encourage people to attend, but to ensure that people are actually attending and not signing up for something and then having 10 no-shows from the same company because nobody shows up?
We've actually had discussion about that and we're still considering possibly charging a small fee, $5-10, just to, like you say, have some kind of a commitment. But we haven't decided 100% on that.
I would be very much in favor of that. I don't want to have anybody say that they couldn't go because of cost, but I think that it would be some skin in the game for them to be able to register and there be a small fee. But and thank you for considering that change from last year to this year.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no more comments on this topic, I'd like to finish working through the other matters and then I'll kind of one motion to approve them all.
Excuse me, Chair Loxton, so we need to approve the summit budget, the Hawker Productions contract agreement.
Okay.
And the group sales agreement.
You'd like to do those separately before we go? Yeah, so
We
you
can
want
do them all
to,
at once if you
Number
want,
one.
or individually, either way.
well, I guess we can do number one and then we can move on to number two with existing policy revisions. So I'll make a motion to approve all
I'll
the
make the
comments.
motion, Mr. Chair.
Great,
I'll second.
thank you. Seeing that the motion has carried, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
I have a point of question, if I may, not to disrupt the flow. Who in our organization is liaison with Hawker?
Well, we're all engaged with them, so.
Okay, well, that's the whole point. For example, if there was a consensus that we needed to expand the scope of sponsorship, someone needs to be responsible to organize that and hold, let's say, Hawker accountable to doing that or developing a plan to do it. So it can't be that everybody's responsible for a relationship with Hawker. I don't know if you would prefer that I make this as a separate standalone motion, but I just don't want to see it get lost in the ether.
Yeah, no, we have committee that will be established specifically for the sponsorships, and we'll have a chair for that committee.
Okay, good. That's great. That answers my question. Let's move on. Thank you.
But bottom line, our CAO is responsible, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Not the hack, that's what I mean. Okay, thank you very much for your indulgence.
Okay, item 2 then?
Existing policy revisions.
Okay, Eric's gonna take it away.
That's good. We have a couple policies here, which will also be on the board and staff communications and policies committee. We typically will bring the policies when they're financial related to this committee as well to get feedback, because that's usually one of the questions we get from the board and communications committee is what the finance and administration committee thought of it. So we'll have 2 existing policies here that we'll touch base on and 1 new policy. So I will start here on page, let's see. On page 59 is the red line version of policy FIN02, which has to do with the check signers, number of signers, and dollar limit for signers. So the edits that I've put on here is a little more clarity and definition on what's going on. So first, we're talking about authorized signers on the foundation investment accounts, which we're establishing as a minimum of 2 directors, as well as the board treasurer. And then as we get a little farther into the policy, we're talking about setting up some more parameters for ACH payments, so the electronic payments. So what we're proposing here is this isn't an expansive list of all the things we'd like, but we wanted to start with some of the elements that are coming up most commonly. Because I would like to do a little more research on the more in-depth payments, but primarily here, we're talking about some of the regular items. So health, can you put to the next page, please? Like health, dental, vision, insurance premiums, retirement accounts, utility payments, credit cards, and anything that might be required to pay electronically via a contract, or if we could avoid fees, so late fees, or if we got something in the mail late, or if we could get a discount on services, we want to include those as eligible to use the ACH process, make an electronic payment. And then we're defining who can do that in the policy here. What parties will be eligible to submit, who will approve. Do you want me to go more in depth, or is that kind of, I'm just trying to give you the overview of what we're looking, or what we have here in the red lines.
I think this is good. I think we've all had a chance to review these when it was provided.
So yeah, there's just establishing those policies then. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer on Finance 02.
We'll open up for public comment on these two policy adjustments.
No public comments.
Thank you. Board comments?
None.
All right, seeing no comments, I would like to make a motion for approval.
Are you looking for a motion? I will make the
Yeah.
motion.
So move.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Next section, Andrea.
Oh, thank you.
You approved both of them, correct?
I think he
Correct.
only did 02.
Only did 02.
Okay.
Oh, you only did one?
Authorized check sign.
I thought the vote was for both.
No problem. We have two in there. One's the red line, and one's the clean version. So the
Correct.
next policy for FIN 06 is our financial reserve. The intent of this adjustments were to change how we phrase our facilities replacement fund. Previously, that was the reserve in case we needed to resume operations of the hospital. Seeing as with the recent lease approval, we're making adjustments and establishing that to be available for operational support and or if the board authorized expenditures utilizing those funds. And then establishing the process on how transfers would be conducted.
Any public comments on this policy? Okay, seeing none, any board comments?
I think, I don't have a problem with this. I just think that, I will disregard my thought. It's gonna come up at our strategic planning meeting in the months to come.
Eric, will you go over that part up there about how transfers are done out of this account? Just to put it on the record, I think, yeah, right there. The written authorization, I think up a little farther too. There's a comment just to clear with the two board members here about how we transfer money in and out of this.
Yep.
You and I discussed it, but just so they have a clear understanding.
Yeah, so when we're talking about transfers from this particular account, we do have limitations with the bank where they're only allowed from our operating account to the investment account or the reverse of that, from the investment account to our operating. So what we've established here is our internal process is to prepare documentation that's approved by one of the authorized directors that's specifying what value of funds are going where, getting that approval from the director. We will support that request with copies of the bank statements. So that way, when they see an account number, they have something to reference it to. But I wanted to note about that limitation that the way it is at the bank is we can't establish a different account to transfer to. It's only operating to investment, investment to operating. Once we have a signed authorization from the director, one of the authorized directors approving that, Then we could take the internal step to submit that, which would involve Chris and myself. One of us could submit that transfer and the other could approve, but it has to be done by separate parties. And that way we'll have at least 3 parties involved in this transaction. The approving director, one of staff is submitting the actual transfer, and then another staff is approving that transfer. And that would be whether it's for operational support or, as we're seeing in item C on the screen here, just if the board authorizes a formal action to use those funds, would be the same process as if we're moving funds around just for operational support. Because we do that throughout the year when we have excess funds in the account. We might move it into the investment account for a period until we might need it later on. And that's all hinged on need as well as the timing of our property tax receipts.
And just to emphasize here that these are monies that are not going outside the organization. This is just shifting monies between our investment accounts and the operational accounts. So not going outside the organization.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Eric, for that comment. I just want to make sure that was on the public record, that we have very good checks and balances as well as financial transparency in how we move the money even within our organization. Okay. Are there any public comments on this policy? Any other board comments?
I do have a comment.
Okay.
So keeping in line with the transparency need, I'm just wondering if we should add another step after C to state that it is reported to the finance committee and the board when actions like this are taken. If I know it's going to be done in the financials, but if it could be like a note or something that kind of brings attention to that, that there has been a transfer. Would that be?
That may be best handled, Letty. We talk about it in the financial meeting here as we all review it. And then if we feel like it's necessary to update the remainder of the board, obviously they'll have access to the financials, but we can call it out separately because I think they move money. They can move money frequently between the operating accounts.
Okay.
And I don't know if we want to inform everybody of that. So maybe we just make it as a kind of a comment here that if we feel as board members on this, that there's a large amount of money being moved, we want to bring that up to the board, that we make that motion here to do it. That may be how I do it. That way we're not commenting on smaller moves of money. We're really just
the only, I totally agree with you. The only thing that it would be like in the minutes or whatever. So I think having it covered in this committee is sufficient. You're right. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. All right. No other board comments. I will ask for a motion to approve this policy.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Aye. Thank you.
The last item I have on this, in this section had to do with the new policy. So this is a proposed policy, OP 17, which has to do with sponsorships. And so provided some details here on what we've had with a lot of the sponsorships that have been presented to the board recently, as well as proposing a couple values here. These are open to discussion from you as you see fit, but ultimately we're trying to just provide some parameters then for sponsorships that may come in, including what the CEO might approve and what would go to the board for approval, as well as a key item. What do we do if a sponsorship comes up where the deadlines don't allow for it to be added to the next board agenda?
And also this is establishing, policy based on what we've discussed in the last several board meetings when we've been approving sponsorships, and we've talked about establishing a budget line item in our annual budget. And so we're working to develop some policy around that, and as we move forward in developing that budget.
Yeah, again, the only concern I have, I think this policy is fine, but the potential for the secondary donation that was made to the cafe event that we talked about earlier today could be perceived of as an end run to the policy. So I don't know how you would anticipate that potential, or if there is such a sponsorship and a secondary appropriation to an organization, that somehow that be reported to us in this committee, and then we can include it in our minutes so that it's memorialized.
Well, and I think in that regard, Director Shore, I think the policy covers that type of thing, because we're talking that if there's multiple sponsorships to one organization, that it should not exceed the maximum of 25,000 for the fiscal year. So in that instance, with the cafe deal, it was 15,000 in total.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks for the clarification.
No,
Thank you.
I think your point is well taken though, Arthur, because technically every one of these we attend to, sometimes they have this open paddle scenario where you can donate additional money, and to say you give 5,000 to one and maybe you go up to the maximum on another. I think we just need to make sure we're very transparent about
That's
how
it.
we go above that when it's not a specific sponsorship tier that we're supporting that has a lot of information. Does that make sense? I mean, because we could have given 10 or 15,000 to the Jocelyn Center, but we chose to cap it at 5 but there was an offering for 10 and 15 that you could have donated. So we could have gone up to that, and we could easily do that at a lot of these events. So I think your point's well taken, that just because the maximum is 25, how do we decide who and what to do that?
I'm happy to leave that to the CEO's discretion, as long as there's
Perfect.
an audit trail, so that when members of our community who are focused on that level of minutia can be confirmed, their anxieties can be reduced. That's all.
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, I do have, I also had that thought when I was reading this, and I am okay with this policy. However, it's my understanding from a previous meeting that we talked about the need to define what a donation was, and maybe have a separate policy for donations, which I considered that action that the CEO took on that day was a donation that was in line with the organization's mission. And but I was thinking we were going to have that discussion as a separate item. So I still think that would be a good idea to have some definition and some criteria or parameters for that. Same way that we're doing it for the sponsorship, but donation. What is a donation, and how does the CEO use that? For clarification.
That's it. I think that's
And I
a good
think
point.
what we can do is maybe we consider the donation part under the CEO discretionary, and we can, maybe enhance that policy as we're talking donations versus the sponsorships that are going to be a completely separate, like say, budget line item, and have this sponsorship policy associated with it.
So effectively, that would come out of your CEO discretionary fund then, Chris. You'd be your discretion to donate up to, I think our limit now is what, $5,000. So you'd have the ability to utilize that. And maybe that does just require a slight policy adjustment in terms of how the CEO discretionary funds are used. I don't know if it's necessary to get that specific in it, but maybe we should table this conversation, put some thoughts behind it, and bring it up in the March meeting. I don't think it's going to hinder anything going on for this month, but I do think it's worth making sure we're very clear and transparent about how we hand out donations that aren't sponsored, that aren't specifically tied to a grant or a specific tiered sponsorship that has a specific reward, not reward, but something attached to it, tickets, marketing, whatever. A donation really has nothing to it. So I think the need for transparency there, or at least a policy around how we allow you to do that, Chris, would be appropriate. I don't think any of us want to micromanage the donations we do to organizations we know work well in the desert and support our mission. But I think just making sure for the public's sake that we have that written out, I think is very important. Any other comments on that thought?
No, I think that's fine. But are you suggesting that we table this sponsorship?
Nope. Nope, I'm saying we approve the
Okay.
sponsorship, and I think we bring up the comment about donation as a separate topic later and how that fits under the CEO discretionary fund.
Yeah, okay, all right, I'm with you. So we're
Okay, thank
looking
you.
to approve the sponsorship policy. and
Correct.
We'll bring back some modifications to the CEO discretionary fund to include some language regarding donation.
Perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to
Okay.
open this up to public comment on this policy.
No public comments.
Thank you. Open up for any additional board member comments. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
So
I'll move
moved.
approval. Oh, I'll second, Director
Great.
Shore.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and the motion carries. Thank you. Next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot I had some notes on that. Can we go back to that and erase a motion for a little bit? I'm sorry.
Absolutely not.
I'd rather do it
Absolutely
now
not.
than at the board meeting. So on this, I kind of digress with the donation thing, but what I would like for the sponsorship, besides having the 3.1, 3.2, 3, and 4 and 5, I would like the organization requesting a sponsorship to submit a budget and to tell us what the money that they are asking for is going to be used for. And the reason I say this is from experience that you have an organization that is, that they're still they are still accountable to the public for how the money is used. So if they can give us a budget, and I think this came up at a recent board meeting, maybe it was last month when I was questioning about the organization. Is it fairly new? Are they responsible? Are they actually going to do the event? So if they can give us a budget and tell us what they're going to use the dollar amount, this could apply for big organizations and small organizations. Tell us what is the budget, just like we did for our event. This is the budget. I think that they should be responsible enough to give us a budget, tell us what they're going to use the dollars for. That's my suggestion and request.
So are you looking for specifically what they're gonna use our dollars for, or?
Yes,
'Cause
I want them
when
to
we
tell us.
receive sponsorships, we don't receive like a $10,000 sponsorship for our event that they're providing specifically for, say, the speakers or anything.
A lot of events do, Chris. A lot of most of the ones that I deal with ask for this is what we're going to use it for, and they have a lot of expenses. Just tell us what you're going to use it for.
And you're talking about in generality, Letty, meaning here's a budget, you're going to give 10,000 of $100,000 budget. I can't tell you that maybe you're supporting 1% of 10 items or you're supporting 100% of one $10,000 item. Are you looking for that granularity, or, hey, here's your $100,000 budget. Your $10,000 is going to go support components of this budget. What were you requesting there?
Okay, for example, there are organizations that have an event and they need to pay for the wine that they put on the table. I don't want our dollars to go towards the wine on the table. I want it to be for an expense that is still as important as the wine on the table, but that is telling us, are they going to use it for marketing? Are they going to use it for the speaker? Give us some idea of what is it that you're going to use the dollars amount. If that event is asking for $5,000 or $10,000, there's a lot of expenses associated with the event. Pick one. Tell us what it's going to be used for.
Okay, I hear your comments. I think it's good to dive into this a little more, but if you start asking about, their budget, then we have to decide what we will and won't support with our sponsorships. And we don't have any information on that yet, Letty. We've been very general with it. I think this is a very good point for transparency and driving it home. I'd like to see some more discussion around this. If you're okay with, again, well, we have to decide if we want to approve this or not with these comments that you're making. If what you're commenting can't be brought up separately and re-addended to this, then we may need to pause this and bring it back up in March as we go and discuss this further, because what we're going to open up into is a very much a subjective field of, yes, I like what you're going to use my money for, or no, I don't. And I don't know if we want to get directly into that right now until we get a little more, spend a little more time thinking about that, if that's what we want to add as a policy or not. Does anybody else, Arthur, anybody else have comments on that thought? Chris?
Anyway, one comment that I have with it is that it seems like what we have generally done is when we've done a sponsorship, we're supporting the event and what the nonprofit organization is putting on to create the fundraising that they need to move forward their mission, their goal.
Correct.
And so I guess I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do that. I'm just wondering if it's necessary for us to go to that level of detail to require and a lot of these are smaller nonprofit organizations that are, small staffed and, they're working hard to put together their event. Do they need to go to that level of detail then to say, hey, district, if you give us 5,000, we're gonna specifically use that money to pay for the food or pay for the production company?
It becomes very, very gray area too, because they can
Lem-
tell us it goes to use whatever. You have no way of really traveling those dollars once they enter their accounts. I think a general budget is very helpful to make sure, they're not spending $500,000 on a one night event. They were like, why are you doing that? But I think I'd like to see their budget just so we have an idea of it. But I personally don't have an interest in seeing exactly how the dollars are spent, because I know it can be very, I think, time consuming and also limiting to that organization. And if we were to do that in our situation, I think we'd have a tough time designating out, because Hawker Productions is taking a lot of actions. And one of our sponsors is going to support a part of our Hawker production, but who's supporting the speaker, who's supporting the rooms that the speaker's staying in? I think it becomes very difficult to produce that information in a relatively simple amount of time. Other
Question,
comments?
Mr.
Go ahead,
Chair, first of
question.
all, I'm
Let-
surprised that we wouldn't want some documentation, because this is a district that asks for receipts for everything, but I will let our grants manager figure out what is reasonable. But when we ask as board members, why did this organization only ask for $5,000 where this other organization asked for $50,000? That is not because of preferential treatment for that organization that's asking for $50,000. It's because of their budget and because of the cost that they are telling us that they needed for that item to make the event a success. So I think asking them for a budget and tell us what you need for will help us understand how is the money going to be used. So that's just seems to me like if it's not too much to ask.
Question. Letty, let me ask you a question. Is your concern focused to your perception or your priority to avoid our funds being used for alcoholic purposes? Or is it a more generic concern that you just finished articulating? Because if it's a question of the issue of us having a policy that our grants are not to be used for alcoholic beverages, et cetera, that can be included in every in the release of funds to advise the grantee, please be advised that our funds cannot be used for the following purposes, et cetera. So I really need a sense of clarification if that's what you're talking about, or if your concern is more generic as you just finished justifying. Either way, I just need to know what your thinking is.
Thank you for asking the question. And I only use that example of alcohol because I know we can't put our investment dollars in alcohol or soft drinks and just being consistent with that. So maybe that's a policy that we should say that we cannot be used, but I was looking for a budget and tell us what we're gonna spend, what the money is gonna be used for, so that if there is a problem, we can address it at that time. Or the CEO can address it and then redirect them that we would prefer that it be used for this other item that you put on the budget. But I think it's just a good practice to know how the funding is being used, to be able to respond to the public's need to know of how the money is being used.
And I think that's a good idea. Director Delara, would you take a look at item 3.3 that's on the screen? Does that meet the needs, or do we need to give more specification here?
Oh, I like this. Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. Because I just got the first part about it being how the sponsorship funding will be used. That's one of the things that I was asking for. Provide general support for that. But the only thing that's lacking in this is the budget. But
We can add that language to
Yeah.
provide a budget.
that would be good.
Okay,
Thank you.
so you could approve it then with that added language for providing a budget to support this item in 3.3.
Is that, any other comments before I open up for public comments and then back to board comments?
And would we decline if they do not opt to provide a budget? I guess we would.
We would not sponsor them then.
Yeah, okay.
They will. They will provide it.
So, excuse me, we need to modify the motion.
Yes, we do. So, how do we go about that? Do I need to reopen this item and then motion to
I will
close?
move approval to recommend approval of this policy with a change to item 3.3 to add the inclusion of a budget with this, and the CAO can determine how to put that wording in there.
Well, with these changes, I need to open it for public comment. Are there any public comments on the changes?
No public comments.
Okay, any final board comments? Final answer? No? Okay. Thank you, Letty. We'll move along with your motion. And a motion to approve.
So move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. LPMP.
Okay, I can start on this. The next item then has to do with a lease renewal. So what we're looking for approval here is a 5-year lease renewal with Desert Regional Medical Center for Suite 3 East 101, 102. Ultimate Sequence, they're coming up on the end of their 10-year lease. They've requested to renew. This particular lease will be at a 3% increase from their existing lease. And then we'll have the greater of 3% or CPI increases annually, not to exceed 5%, which is typical terms that we've had with some of the prior leases we've had renewed in the last year or so with them, and as well as providing a tenant improvement allowance of $10 a square foot. Lease is in the packet for your review, and we recommend approving the lease as presented.
Any public comments on this?
No public comments.
Any board comments on this? Okay. I would like to continue moving through the rest of the policies, and then I'll make a motion to approve them all at one time.
So that's a lease agreement, Chair Loxton, so we need to approve that separately.
Okay, there we go. See, lessons learned. Okay, I will take a motion. Somebody give me a motion to approve this.
I will make a motion. I will move approval of this item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, that's empty, right? They just been holding it.
And then next is the FY new line item for the sponsorships.
Yes, what we're proposing here is in consideration of the sponsorship policy. I'm looking at page 100 of the packet.
Thank you.
So what we've done in the past, sponsorships have been expensed to CEO discretionary. Since we have OP 17 on the approval or on the agenda for approval today, we'd like to request an amendment to the current fiscal year budget to add a $75,000 budget line for sponsorships to cover the remainder of the fiscal year. As far as the fiscal impact, this additional $75,000 expense would reduce our budgeted net income to $896,994. And we're open for any questions you might have on this. It's to support the policy.
The money coming from the grant budget.
Operations.
Are there any public comments on this policy?
No public comments.
Board comments?
None.
I look for a motion to approve.
I'll move approval.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Okay, moving on to item 6, the request for proposal, RFP process discussion and direction for legal counsel, audit and investment firms. So this is just for discussion and possible direction. But every 5 years or so, we sometimes will take a look at, do we want to consider putting out an RFP for these 3 professional areas? I'll address each one of them individually. Currently, the audit, we are starting the 3rd year of work with the current audit firm. And so that would probably not be need to consider right now. The investment firms, although it's been a while since we've done any RFP process, the recommendation from staff would be to hold off on this until we get through our strategic planning process. We're going to have sizable amounts of resources that we need to consider the investment tactics with. And so the thought would be to hold off till we get through our RFP for the consultant for the strategic planning and get through that planning process, and then do a separate RFP for investment firms that would be strategizing how we invest our monies going forward. The other item with legal counsel, we have been with Jeff Scott for several years now. We really haven't considered going out for an RFP to consider other legal counsel. It's just being communicated at this point. If the committee would like to do something like that in the near future, to do an RFP for legal counsel, or if we stay, or if we remain status quo. They're looking for your thoughts and direction, if any.
I'll open up for public comments first.
No
No
public
public.
comment. No.
Thank you. All right, board comments?
I feel that we're very well served by Mr. Scott and his law practice. And there's no need, in my opinion, to make any considering changes now, other than if there's a fiscal agenda to address billing rates. If there's any concern about billing rates, then that would be a separate subset question. But short of that, I think services and the guidance and strategic insights and contacts that Mr. Scott and his colleagues have are invaluable.
And just to address your comment there about billing rate, Director Shore, when we did do the RFP, I would say it was back in
10 years.
2016 or so. Because it was after Kathy, yeah. I know his billing rate was probably $200 or $300 less than the other firms that we had received proposals from.
I'm not surprised, and I'm not surprised, and that's fine.
Okay, so if it's okay, I think we should have a policy for doing RFPs for all those 3 areas, and it could start whenever, like you said, timing for investment and audit. I think it needs to be more than 3 years. I think it should be every 5 years. I think best practice.
And we do have that. We do have that in policy.
Okay, good. For
5 years.
legal counsel, I agree with Director Shore that we have been well served by Mr. Scott. However, I do believe that as a public entity, we should do an RFP, and we should allow him to be able to be considered along with others. I know that we just recently gave him an increase in pay, and I think that he's still probably very reasonable. But I think it is a responsibility that we need to look at others and compare him with other services. And if he still comes out ahead, then he should be selected. But I don't think we should skip that step because we've served. We just need to make sure that everything is procedurally that we do this RFP every 5 years, same as audit or an investment firm, whatever it is that we have for the other ones, we should do it for legal as well.
And just for a point of clarification, 2 things there. One is the 5-year period. We don't have to do an RFP. It's brought to the attention of the committee and the board to consider doing the RFP, and then we can do it as the board gives direction. And then to clarify too, Jeff's legal fees have not increased since he started back in, I think, 2016 or 17.
Really? I thought we had increased it recently, but I could be wrong. I thought it was a legal fee. Maybe it was, I'm probably wrong. But I do think we should do an
You can never be wrong. You're letting. No, I agree. I don't recall any change in fees.
But it would have to be up to the committee then to, give direction whether we're going to do RFP or not. And either way is fine with us, so.
Mhm.
I'll make a few comments. I think RFPs are important for public entities. I think, we need to allow others to compete for public dollars. You have to do it in every space. I think the timing that we implement this is important. I mean, we're going through a lot of changes now, and I don't see the benefit of putting an RFP out on any of these, at least for the next couple of years, until we kind of go through this initial transition period with the sale of the hospital, working through all of that. So I think adding any additional work around, going out for even proposals at this time, I'm not sure it's time well spent, but I do think in the future, all of these should go out for RFPs just for the sake of fairness. And again, transparency. Now, our RFP isn't saying we're going to compete for the bottom dollar, right? We're competing for whoever fits best with our services. And I think, we all know that Jeff Scott fits very well with his knowledge base and his history working with the boards and the districts, that it'd be hard to see a time where he would not serve us better than the competition. But I think we should allow him to prove that. But I don't think now is the right time. So I don't know how that actually fits into the current request for an RFP process, but those are my thoughts.
Well,
Yeah, and to
well
your
said and
point,
agreed to.
and to your point, Director Logston, is that, maybe it's better served to revisit this after we get through our strategic planning process, and, we have things kind of, a vision of what we're doing, not only for the next 5-year strategic plan, but long-term. And then
Yes.
we're considering not only the investment firm, but we're then doing an RFP on the legal counsel side of things too, so that we're lining those things up after we have our long-term vision in place and know where we're going forward.
Yep. I think I would motion to allow this to be tabled and brought back up in, at some point, maybe 6 months down the road after we've done our strategic planning, and we can decide if and when we want to implement this policy.
So that will be a recommendation. This actually isn't an action item, so a recommendation.
Correct. Yep. That would be the recommendation I would take to the board.
So just since it's not a motion, I would just be I would not be in favor of waiting on the legal counsel. It's not because I have a problem with Jeff. I think that the RFP takes a while to actually go through, and I don't think the strategic planning process is going to be hurt by having this happen at the same time. And if we decide that Jeff is the best person for this position, that he has the best skills and and the best of everything, then there will definitely not be any change. And if we do select a different attorney, then why not have that person come in and start learning the process? So I don't think it'll be hurt by having it. The audit, we are just third year into it, so I don't think there's any rush on that. The investment firm, Chris, you make a very strong case that because it's of the timing, I do think that we should wait for a little bit on that. But I don't agree with waiting on the legal counsel.
Not waiting on legal counsel is that we're still in a very early time period after having sold the hospital and gone through that part. I think it would be very challenging to consider new legal counsel with the history and what we've gone through in terms of writing the lease and everything that comes around that. We would have a significant cost if we ever considered, switching attorneys at this time just to get them up to speed with where we've been. So while I appreciate going out for an RFP, I just think now is not the right timing for any of these, especially because of what we've gone through legally. I think we need the support of the team that got us here. Those are my comments on that.
I would.
So are you willing to then wait for 6 months then for us to revisit this in 6 months?
I would support waiting for 6 months. I think Director Hodgins is absolutely correct at this time.
I would be okay with 6 months as well.
Okay, so be it.
Thank you, committee.
So the last item.
Next item then, number 7, Eric will take that.
Yes, so what we have here is requesting approval for the services agreement with the Pink Journey Foundation, so we can provide mobile mammography clinics within the Coachella Valley. Is there a couple key points you want to add?
Yes, of course. The Pink Journey Foundation has been our partner. We did the first women wellness clinic December 7th, where we were able to provide 50 mammogram screenings to women that work with DOLEC, primarily farm worker women. And then this past Saturday, we just did another event with the Pink Journey Foundation in partnership with the UCR School of Medicine with Dr. Cheney and her group. And we were able to provide another 40 mammography screenings. So this agreement is just to be able to have the Pink Journey Foundation contracted so that we could actually do more of these events in other underserved areas. We tentatively have a hold on March 22nd for another mammography screening event in partnership with Word of Life Fellowship Church in Desert Hot Springs and the city of Desert Hot Springs. They provide, all of the equipment. They provide 2 technicians, actually 3 technicians. They do the results. They partner with RadNet, who is a local or a statewide, if not national imaging company. And they are able to also do health education and provide the results to the women. And then we're able to follow up with the women to ensure that if they have any questions, they also have programs to enroll the women if additional testing is needing, like a biopsy, or in some cases, if they need to enroll in the Every Woman Counts program, which is a state-funded program for uninsured women who need to have breast cancer resources.
So this agreement here, just to get back to the financial element, would allow us to utilize them not to exceed 50,000, which would be up to 5 events at $10,000 per event through the remainder of the calendar year. As far as the budget, we do currently have the quarterly mobile medical unit expenses budgeted on the foundation side for the fiscal year 24-25, and we would intend to carry that same budget line when we're preparing the new budget for the 25-26 to cover these potential expenses.
And these events will not be standalone events with the mammography screening. We complement them with pap smears, which DPMG Health, our 2 mobile units, are able to provide. In addition to medical enrollment for women who are uninsured. We in the first event in December 7th, we had vaccination clinic also attached to that. So we try to add on additional services through other medical mobile units. So this is just an extension of our work that we're trying to do with our medical mobile units.
Thank you, guys. I'll open up for any public comments.
No public comments.
Any board comments? All right, seeing no board comments, I'll make a motion for approval.
Second,
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, and that is our last agenda item for the, other than any committee member comments for the FNA committee or the district.
Yep, I'll open up for any other committee member comments before we adjourn. Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion for, do I have to make a motion for adjournment?
No, you can just adjourn the meeting
All right,
at.
4:21 PM. Motion, it's adjourned. All right, we'll call to order the foundation financial meeting for February. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I move
So-
approval.
Second,
Thank you. A motion for approval of the meeting minutes from January.
so move.
Second.
Thank you. And I'll open up for public comments at this time.
All those in
Comment-
favor say aye. Aye.
Aye,
Aye. All right, public comment time. At this time, comments from the audience may be made on items not listed on the agenda that are of public interest and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the, keep scrolling down.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Of the district, the committee has a policy of limiting speakers to not more than 3 minutes. The committee cannot take action on items not listed on the agenda. Public input may be offered on an agenda item when it comes up for discussion and or action. Are there any public comments at this time?
No public comments.
Thank you. I'll move to the Chief Executive Officer report.
No items at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move on to the financial reports.
All right, I am looking at page 7 of the PDF packet. So on this, there wasn't anything specific that I haven't brought up at, more recent meetings to point out. I did want to note, on the grants line itself, we were able to secure the insurance and have submitted the executed contract for our United Way COVID-19 funding. So we've mentioned that a couple times in prior meetings, but we were able to work that out. And so we will potentially get up to 200,000 for grant revenue in that, once we start that project. But that would be a item to note as far as the income statement there. And then I have just a handful of other comments throughout the packet, so if you have questions, please let me know, but again, I'm just pointing out whatever was things that haven't been brought up more recently. So if we're looking like page 10, I just wanted to note this particular report. I don't know if we specified, but the allocation of major categories. Ultimately, this is saying, of our assets, we're restricting a certain amount to be able to address our liabilities for accounts payable and outstanding grants. So in this particular case, 2 million of our 5.3 million is restricted to address those liabilities and grants. My next comment isn't until page 12. As far as the check register, just wanted to note on here, we've issued the first round of payments to the grantees for the environmental health RFP, which was approved by the board in December 2024. And then for the next 2 pages, I just was highlighting, we do have 2 different credit card reports. The reason for that, the first one, minimal charges, that's our old credit card. We have in the previous months been able to get a new credit card through the CalCard system. And so we will be planning on discontinuing that original card. There's just a handful of things that we're updating as far as subscriptions and whatnot, but the new card to kind of tie into our prior element on the district for ACH and whatnot. This new card will give us a little bit of benefit by getting a small percentage back on our purchases. That percentage is the greatest, the quicker we pay. So we have up to 45 days to pay. So the quicker we can make the payment, the greater the payment will be. We are still new to the program, so we haven't started to see that those payments come in yet, so I can have more information on that in the future. But by allowing us to make ACH payments, we can essentially pay as soon as we get that invoice and then set ourselves up for the best rebate back to us. And then last 2 pages is talking about balances for grants on page 15. Majority of the 520,000 we have available are carryover from prior years. And then the very last page is our pass-through grant schedule. Just wanted to note this particular one is really just reflecting the US Aging Grant, which goes through March 31st. We will, in the coming months, add on that United Way grant I was talking about. That currently also has a March 31st timeline with the potential to be extended, but we will expand on this because this report's been pretty minimal so far. So you'll see a little bit more on there. That was mainly the items I wanted to point out. Everything else is pretty much as anticipated, and I can answer any questions that you may have.
I'll open up for public comments.
No public comments.
Thank you. Board comments? Seeing no board comments, I'll ask for a motion for approval.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Other matters, nothing under other matters. So we'll move on to committee member comments. Are there any committee member comments at this time? Seeing none, I'll move for adjournment at 4:27 PM. I'll adjourn the foundation financial meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Directors.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.